What if every judgment, every worry, every fleeting idea that passes through your mind is not who you are? Imagine for a moment that the voice inside your head, the constant commentary on yourself, others, and the world, is merely a passing cloud, not the sky itself. Most of us live as if these thoughts define us, letting every whisper of doubt or critique shape our identity. But what if this is an illusion? That the essence of who you are exists beyond the endless chatter, quiet and untouchable, waiting to be noticed? For millennia, thinkers have noticed the gap between the mind and the self. In ancient India, sages of the Upanishads explored consciousness, describing the witness within, the silent observer that watches thoughts arise and fade. Buddhism formalized this insight, teaching that attachment to thoughts breeds suffering, and that liberation comes from recognizing their impermanence. Similarly, Stoic philosophers in ancient Greece urged self-examination, asking their students to question which impulses truly belonged to them and which were inherited from society, habit, or fear. Even in Western philosophy, René Descartes framed the relationship between thought and identity through his famous declaration, "I think, therefore I am." Yet, closer reading reveals a subtle distinction. The act of thinking affirms existence, but it does not equate the thinker with every passing thought. The mind produces endless commentary, speculation, and judgment, yet there is a core awareness that simply notices these mental events. Across cultures and epochs, anecdotes abound. Medieval monks, cloistered in stone walls, would spend hours in silent contemplation, noting thoughts without acting on them, learning the rhythm of the mind, and discovering a sense of self untouched by transient ideas. In more recent times, contemplative scientists and psychologists have documented the universality of this phenomenon. Humans are flooded with spontaneous thoughts, many irrelevant or even contradictory, and yet a stable sense of identity persists. Modern psychology has given this observation a name. The default mode network is a neural system that activates when the brain is at rest, generating streams of self-referential thought, memories, plans, judgments, daydreams. Experiments reveal that these mental wanderings are constant, yet the observer of these thoughts remains consistent. Even when the mind spins with anxiety, regret, or fantasy, there exists a quiet awareness capable of noticing without identification. The challenge has always been cultural. Societies reward alignment with thought, productivity, confidence, decisiveness. Children are taught to follow internal voices as if they were commandments, and adults often accept negative self-talk as truth. Yet, in parallel, spiritual and philosophical traditions across the world have offered proof that the voice in your head is not you. Observing thoughts without judgment, pausing before acting on impulse, and witnessing the rise and fall of emotions reveals a persistent awareness, stable, unshaken, beyond the flux of mental noise. This is the origin of understanding that thought and identity are distinct. It is a lesson woven into centuries of philosophy, meditation, and self-inquiry, that the mind speaks endlessly, but existence itself is not the voice of the mind. The realization that you are not your thoughts is not new. It is ancient, tested, and echoed in countless traditions. Yet it is only in direct experience, through patient observation, that the proof becomes undeniable. Beneath the chatter, beneath judgment and anxiety, there is a quiet, unwavering self, simply aware. As we begin to observe our own minds, a startling truth emerges. Thoughts are not commands, and they are not the essence of who we are. They appear uninvited, fleeting and fluid, like ripples across a still lake. Some are sharp and urgent, others gentle and persuasive, yet none can define the silent awareness that notices them. This discovery, so simple, yet so profound, shifts our relationship with our own minds. Psychologists describe this as metacognition, the ability to observe thought as a separate process. Studies of mindfulness meditation reveal that even a few minutes of sustained observation reduces the brain's reactivity to negative thoughts, allowing the observer to remain calm and grounded. Our internal dialogue, once mistaken for selfhood, is revealed as mental noise, transient, often contradictory, and largely outside conscious control. Cognitive biases further illustrate the point. The mind naturally exaggerates fears, invents stories, and jumps to conclusions. We may believe a thought, feel it intensely, and yet it carries no inherent truth about who we are. By noticing thoughts without attachment, we cultivate a space where judgment and impulse no longer dominate. The mind becomes a tool rather than a tyrant, and identity shifts from reactive to reflective. Artists, scientists, and thinkers across history have stumbled upon this discovery intuitively. Albert Einstein reportedly found his most profound insights during moments of quiet reverie, when the mind was not consumed by analysis or obligation. Writers describe ideas arriving spontaneously in stillness, unbidden by the will. In these moments, the self is not bound to thought. It is the space in which thought appears, observes, and dissolves. The discovery is liberating. Anxiety, guilt, regret, all the pressures that once seemed inseparable from the self, begin to loosen their grip. Awareness without identification allows us to witness life more clearly, to respond rather than react, to live from presence rather than compulsion. The mind remains active, vibrant, and creative, but the self discovers a constant beneath the turbulence, a quiet, enduring awareness that is the truest measure of who we are. Imagine a life in which you fully internalize that you are not your thoughts. What would it mean to wake each day free from the relentless commentary of doubt, fear, and judgment? Anxiety might lose its edge, guilt might dissolve like morning mist, and the compulsive need to control every outcome could fade into spacious clarity. In this state, creativity flows naturally, unblocked by self-criticism, and insight emerges without effort, as if the mind itself becomes a lens for the infinite possibilities around us. Some neuroscientists suggest that this separation between observer and thought could enhance cognitive flexibility. When the mind is no longer a prison, it navigates problems with curiosity rather than compulsion. Decisions become less reactive, more deliberate, grounded in clarity instead of fear. Philosophers speculate that recognizing this truth could even reshape our moral imagination, allowing empathy to flourish unburdened by the ego's incessant chatter. By simply noticing thoughts without claiming them as self, we enter a world where inner peace is not a goal, but a natural state. The mind's ceaseless stories continue, yet they no longer dictate our sense of worth or reality. In this speculative horizon, freedom is not about doing more or achieving more. It is about being fully awake, present, and aligned with the core awareness that has always existed beneath the noise. The consequences of truly recognizing that you are not your thoughts extend far beyond personal clarity. Relationships could transform as we stop projecting inner judgments onto others, listening instead with presence and empathy. Conflicts may diminish, replaced by understanding that the mind's commentary is not the final truth. In work and creativity, identifying less with every passing idea could free us from perfectionism and fear of failure. Innovation thrives when thought is a tool, not a tyrant, and collaboration deepens when ego-driven narratives no longer dominate. Mental health, too, could shift profoundly. Stress and depression often feed on unexamined thoughts, but awareness without attachment creates resilience and calm. Society might even change, subtly but significantly, if more people recognize this distinction. Priorities would tilt toward reflection and presence, valuing mindful engagement over compulsive action. The transformative power lies in the simple act of observation, noticing thoughts, allowing them to arise and dissolve, and realizing that the self beneath them is vast, stable, and untouchable by mental turbulence. Thoughts drift across the mind like clouds across an endless sky, sometimes dark, sometimes luminous, always in motion. Beneath them, the sky itself remains vast, calm, and unshaken. To witness this is to awaken to a freedom that has always been present, silent yet profound, the awareness that watches without judgment, without attachment. Every fleeting idea becomes a ripple, not a chain. Every fear a shadow that passes over light already shining. The mind may chatter, speculate, and argue, but the self, the quiet observer, is untouched, infinite in its capacity to hold, reflect, and simply be. In this space, life slows, not as a pause from action, but as an embrace of presence. The world appears with richer color, sharper clarity, and deeper resonance. To notice without claiming, to exist without proving, is to touch the essence of being. And in that awareness, the mind speaks, the world moves, and you remain, a witness, a presence, a quiet and luminous consciousness beyond the words that try to define it.